Thank you, Dan. That was a really spirited prelude. I love that. So as I was saying, I'm really glad Rocky's here, and I've asked Rocky to please come up and light our chalice. We light this chalice flame to kindle our kindfulness, to illuminate our interconnectedness, to spark our faith that we are free to choose love as our guiding light. In the words of the aforementioned favorite Fred Small song, you can live by yourself, you can gather friends around, you can choose one special one. And the only measure of your words and your deeds will be the love you leave behind when you're done. Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Fred. I think if folks are willing to give this a try, we have it in our order of service, our congregational covenant. Let's see what it would sound like to read something in unison. Unison, it's kind of like the Unitarian Universalist unison. Theoretically, we should be all set to do this. A one, a two, a we know what to do. In this house, we covenant with one another to create a community built on a foundation of love, to work together to promote equality, justice, and peace, accepting the responsibility for our individual acts, to stand on the side of love, embracing the liberation of oppressed minorities and working to end discrimination and unjust privileges, to communicate with kindness and support, and to serve with compassion and commitment, to listen respectfully and value our diversity as a source of our collective strength, to learn and grow together, generously sharing our time, talents, and treasures. Last two, to celebrate the joys of discovery, from the wonder of youth to the wisdom of age, and to openly share our laughter and our tears, showing reverence for the divine in all that is. Now I'd like to welcome back Fred to do the hymn, Bright Morning Star.
Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, days are breaking in my soul. Bright morning star arising, days are breaking in my soul. This song began, as some of you know, as a sleepy Appalachian hymn, bright morning stars arising. It's in our hymnal, very beautiful. Court Dorsey, some of you may know him, activist, musician, took this song to the Seabrook nuclear protests decades back and kicked it up a notch and turned it into a movement anthem. And then, of course, it being folk music, I added a couple more verses, and here we are. So I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, keeping your masks on, I guess is the protocol, but that doesn't stop you from singing. Bright morning star, give it a try. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, days are breaking in my soul. There's some wonderful harmonies to be found here, and just Experiment and enjoy. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Days are breaking in my soul for justice and compassion, for justice and compassion, for justice and compassion, for justice and compassion. Days are breaking in my soul for peace in every nation, for peace in every nation, for peace in every nation, for peace in every nation. Days are breaking in my soul for the healing of creation, for the healing of creation, for the healing of creation, for the healing of creation. Days are breaking in my soul for the future of our children, for the future of our children, for the future of our children, for the future of our children. Days are breaking in my soul. Last time, bright morning star. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Days are breaking in my soul. Beautiful singing. Thank you. This reading is by Joy Harjo, a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation and United States Poet Laureate. Once I traveled far above the earth. This beloved planet we call home was covered with an elastic web of light. I watched in awe as it shimmered, stretched, dimmed, and shined, shaped by the collective effort of all life within it. Dissonance attracted more dissonance. Harmony attracted harmony. I saw revolutions, droughts, famines, and the births of new nations. The most humble kindnesses made the brightest lights. Nothing was wasted.
So this is the time in our service when we have a chance to be real with each other. It's an opportunity to open up and share both joys and sorrows, and to hold them out loud for this community to support in a way that makes it more joyful when there's something good in your life, and when maybe it eases the burden when there's something hard in your life. We've done this, most of us, many different times, so I don't know if we need a lot of instruction, but I'll go and light a candle for anyone who would like me to literally light a candle. You can also just share. Doesn't necessarily have to specifically be about a candle. But Dan, we often have had somebody coming around with a microphone. Did you want to do that, or do you want me to try to do that? Okay, so I'll do that. How about Jennifer? Would you double for me and light the candles?
Check 1, 2.
Okay, is there anyone who has? Let's see, is this on, Dan? Okay, is there anyone who would like to raise their hand and offer a joy or a sorrow? All right, I'll give you a few minutes to think, and I'll offer one. Oh no, Russ has got something.
Russ always says something. To light a candle of joy that I am feeling thankful that through medical science, I now have a continuous glucose monitor. No, it's within 20 feet, so I'm good. To keep track of my blood sugar. I have diabetes, and I am learning from using this, and I'm doing better in dosing myself with insulin. And I have an appointment this week with a diabetes educator. Thank you, Medicare. And that's it. Thank you.
My name is Kim, and Greg Boros loves me. Oh.
It's a good joy, Kim. Anyone else?
My name is Tina, and I've been missing everybody. And I would like a candle lit for my brother Steve, who is down in Florida in another rehab, struggling with his issues of addictions. And I've missed everybody.
Yeah, I'm Suzanne. Wow, the sorrow is coming up first with my tears for all the babies and children and families that are suffering these brutal wars that go on and that are so insane. And I top that off with my great joy and gratitude for being a great grandma. It's 16 months and a few days since Otto was born, Otto Wilder. And I've been with him 3 times at different stages of his life because he lives in Washington State. So it's been a great joy to be able to be with him in different stages. So I just hope, yeah, for life for many of those children.
Thank you. Who else would like to share joy or concern?
Well, I just want to, this is Pam, and I just want to thank Fred Small for coming out. And this is, we are now, have traveled for several weeks. We've been celebrating Earth Day, Arbor Day, and now Mother's Day. And we've done a lot of prep for all of that. We've had a huge celebration at the Energy Park, and many of you helped. You know, some of you really helped carry things through that whole thing. Many of you on Zoom have also helped. And, I can see a couple of people right here in front of me who were in the one in the planning committee and one in the laboring committee. So we're grateful for all of that energy and for Fred's coming today to kind of top off what we have learned so far. Forests, the whole energy plan for the whole state, and we're just forging ahead. So thanks for being here and keeping things rolling.
Thank you, Pam, for being such a tireless advocate. Anyone else? Great.
Hello, I'm Alyssa. I've been coming here for just maybe 4 or 5 weeks now, and I'm just so grateful and really am sharing a lot of joy every time I come and how welcoming this environment is. I'm so grateful for Sandra and Pam and Kate and everyone that I've met before, and Kay for making a name tag for me for next week. It's just filling my heart to the brim, and I'm so grateful to be joining this wonderful community. So thank you.
If you get a name tag, then you're really in. That's
We have someone online. Emma, do you want to unmute and say what you have?
Yes, thank you, Dan. And thank you, Fred, for being here. That's what drew me to come to the service today. In any case, I would like to light a candle. I don't even know. It's a candle of sorrow, and it's a candle of healing and recovery, I guess. My sorrow, I got an email from my father last weekend that threw me so hard. He is someone, my relationship with him has been characterized by the trauma of my childhood. That was his responsibility. And I've had long periods, even 18 years at a time, where I didn't relate to him at all. But over the past 12 years, we have been reconnected. And that for me has been predicated on his acceptance, even if he says he doesn't remember, which can happen with dissociation, etc. Even if whatever he says and however he goes back and forth, as long as he can accept that it happened and be working on it, that's like the bottom. And basically the email said that he is no longer able, he's not willing to do that anymore. In other words, he doesn't, he denies it. And if we're going to have any relationship, it has to be predicated on the fact that he did not. And since it characterized my childhood and it's still something I'm healing from, I can't do that. So for me, what it means is letting go of my relationship with my father once again. And he's 87. And it just feels, I have enormous grief over this, enormous grief. And I'm not going to let go of myself, my recovery, what I know to be true, my heart, and my capacity to heal, to heal with others, because that's how we heal. We heal in relationship with others, and I will continue that. And I'm grateful to find a way to say this in a even small little community. The fact that there's not a huge number of people here makes it easier, and that I know a number of you, quite a number of you, and some of you know some of my story. So thank you. I'd like that candle to be lit. Thank you.
yes.
I'd like to light a candle for All Souls Unitarian Church. A woman who's living with us named Sheila, who's been here a few times today, she's in Northfield, is homeless, and her driver's license expired. So if we asked her to leave, she couldn't even live in her car again. So All Souls agreed to sign an affidavit allowing her to use our address as a residential address. And last week she went and got her driver's license, so she's very pleased and grateful.
One small step for a church that's trying to put its covenant into its conduct. I'll close unless there's anyone else who might like to share a candle. Hold on, maybe Dan, are you saying? No. It's a tough 24 hours because my beloved daughter has a very difficult, estranged relationship with her mom, and Mother's Day and my daughter's birthday are 24 hours apart. And it's just kind of double sorrow. And then the joy part of it is that they keep trying, and maybe they'll find a way back to something that can be healthy between them. That's the joy and the prayer. All right, so this is the time of our service where we get a chance to give back in a more material way. We have, as I'm sure every building does, operational expenses, and I won't go into all the details, but if there is a way that you can feel good about contributing some money in the form of either cash or a check, there will be people walking up and down the aisles very gratefully receiving it, and it really, every little bit does help, so I hope people can find a way to be as generous as you can. So thank you very much for your contributions. And I have lost my order of service, but you're up next. So please welcome again back to the pulpit, Reverend Fred Small.
I invite you to turn to the back of your gray hymnal and find responsive reading number 568, Connections Are Made Slowly, by Marge Piercy. Connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. More than half a tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. Fight persistently as the creeper that brings down the tree. Gnaw in the dark and use the sun to make sugar. Live a life you can endure. Make love that is loving. Live as if you like yourself, and it may happen. This is how we are going to live for a long time, not always. Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? This song written by Guy Carawan, inspired by the spirituality of the Carolina Sea Islands. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Please rise in body or in spirit and give it a try. Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? So rocky the road, so rocky the road, so dangerous the journey, so dangerous the journey, but we got a right, but we got a right. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? We come from a distance. We come from a distance. We come from a distance, and we got a right, and we got a right. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Our lives will be sweeter. Our lives will be sweeter. Our lives will be sweeter, 'cause we got a right. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Beautiful. Thank you. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and all who may have wished to be mothers, and to the mother we all share, Mother Earth. It was only the first week of June, but the sun burnt fierce in the noon sky as the temperature blazed into the 90s. 2,000 of us marched down a narrow Minnesota highway barely 100 miles from the Canadian border to stop line 3. The tar sands oil pipeline, violating indigenous treaty rights and menacing both the global climate and the health, safety, and sacred traditions of the Anishinaabe people in its path. I followed the first wave of indigenous water protectors as they stepped off the broiling asphalt and descended into the muddy headwaters of the Mississippi River. Ignoring the no trespassing signs, we slogged 100 yards through mud, tugging at our ankles, to a wooden platform where we would establish Camp Firelight, a nonviolent occupation of the property of the Enbridge Corporation. Noticing my clerical collar, an Anishinaabe elder called out, "Do you feel baptized, Father?" I did. I traveled to Minnesota not simply to make a political statement. I went there on pilgrimage as an act of devotion and atonement. My ancestors were colonizers as far back as the Mayflower. While I am not responsible for their wars against Native people and their theft of native lands, I benefit from these crimes in countless ways every day. I can't change the past, but I can demand justice in the present. As an environmental activist who is also a person of faith, I turn more and more to indigenous wisdom and spirituality for guidance. Immersing myself in the headwaters of the Mississippi, I felt powerfully the interconnection of all things: the river, the sky, the two-legged, the four-legged, the winged, the finned, and everything green. We didn't stop Line 3. Oil began flowing through it last October. These are challenging times. Challenging times for all of us who care about climate justice and racial justice and public health and reproductive freedom and democracy. While Trump supporters continue to propagate the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen from him, GOP-controlled states enact voting restrictions redolent of Jim Crow. After momentary relief last summer that the worst of the pandemic might be behind us, the Delta variant comes roaring in, swiftly followed by Omicron, and now by a seemingly endless parade of even more contagious variants and subvariants. Joe Biden's climate initiatives are stymied one after another by our de facto climate czar, Senator Joe Manchin, who seems more concerned about protecting the fossil fuel industry than the future of West Virginians. And any climate initiatives that survive could die in the Trump-packed Supreme Court. Already, some climate damage is, for all practical purposes, irreversible. And the most vulnerable people on the planet, most of them poor and of color, will suffer most. And now Russia has brutally invaded Ukraine, terrorizing its neighbor and ushering in a new era of European and potentially global instability. And with the apparent likelihood that Roe v. Wade will be reversed by the Supreme Court, who knows what horrors lie ahead for women and for reproductive justice. Given these cascading crises, it's not surprising that many of us fall prey to despair, depression, and hopelessness. To survive, we have to acknowledge the severity of the threats confronting us, and we have to feel all the feelings that well up within us. But acknowledging feelings of impending doom is one thing. Trafficking in doomism is another. Doomism, the morbid, lurid wallowing in worst-case scenarios while dismissing movements for change as futile and naive, doomism is on the rise. The brilliant London-based economist Umair Haque, sometimes called the master of catastrophe, churns out weekly screeds with titles like "The Future is Here and It's Made of Apocalypse." If it feels like hell on earth is descending, that's because it is. Does humanity deserve to survive? America is a smoking fascist dystopia. And my favorite, it's not that I'm negative, we really are screwed. In 2019, The New Yorker published an essay by novelist Jonathan Franz entitled, "What if we stopped pretending the climate apocalypse is coming? To prepare for it, we need to admit that we can't prevent it." Guy McPherson, a retired ecology professor, has gone so far off the doomist deep end that he endorsed a climate denier for president in 2016. Donald Trump, Professor McPherson proclaimed, is another manifestation of the cleansing fire. He has secured my vote to quicken the demise, sparking the flame. Now, scientists point out that doomists often distort the science, maximizing predictions of climate disaster, just as denialists minimize them. But my arguments against doomism are more practical and spiritual. And what good, after all, is an impractical spirituality? As a practical matter, of course, giving up, by definition, eliminates any chance of success. As climate scientist Michael Mann points out, if you take the most environmentally aware progressives, lead them to despair, and convince them to dissociate from civilization, they're not out there on the front lines, participating in the political process, demonstrating and fighting for the needed systemic changes. Dr. Elizabeth Salwin, co-founder of Climate Interactive, reminds us that every fraction of a degree of temperature rise averted is suffering averted. Just because you can't stop all suffering is not a reason to not prevent what suffering you can. There are tipping points in the human heart and the collective consciousness, Dr. Salwin says. And these tipping points could be just as sudden and big as any in the Earth system. I remember a story from my childhood about two frogs who fall into a bucket of cream. The sides of the bucket are steep and slippery, and no matter how they try, they can't climb out. They kick and kick to stay afloat. But as hours pass, they grow exhausted. "We're doomed," one of them gasps and slips beneath the surface for the last time. The other keeps on kicking through the long night. By morning, all that kicking has churned the cream into butter, which provides a foothold for the frog to climb out of the bucket. The frog who died, that frog didn't die from drowning. That frog died from loss of hope. Simply by persisting, the surviving frog remained open to unimagined possibility. Spiritually, if we give up, we forfeit our integrity. Our lives are drained of meaning and purpose. When we abandon hope, we betray both our ancestors and our descendants. Hope is different from optimism. Optimism is an expectation that things will turn out all right. Hope perseveres regardless. Václav Havel, the playwright who became the first president of the Czech Republic, called hope an orientation of the spirit, an orientation of the heart. It transcends the world that is immediately experienced and is anchored somewhere beyond its horizons. Hope, Havel said, is an ability to work for something because it is good, not just because it stands a chance to succeed. Professor Cornel West says, optimism for me has never been an option because there's too much suffering in the world. Think of all the African bones and bodies at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean with the slave trade. But hope is something else. Hope is something else, you see, because hope is not spectatorial. It's participatory. You're already in the mess. You're in the funk. What are you going to do? Hope, says Dr. West, hope is a verb as much as a virtue. Hope is something that you find in your immersion and you decide you're going to fight till the end no matter what. Rebecca Solnit, who studies how people respond to natural disaster, she puts it this way: hope is not a lottery ticket you can sit on the sofa and clutch, feeling lucky. It's an axe you break down doors with in an emergency. To hope is to give yourself to the future. And that commitment to the future is what makes the present bearable. From the coronavirus to the ecological crisis, from structural racism to rising authoritarianism, the obstacles before us can feel overwhelming. It's hard to know what to do or even where to begin. Lately, I have found comfort and strength in the maxim, do the next right thing. The origins of the saying are obscure, but I hear it more and more. It even inspired a song in Disney's Frozen 2. Do the next right thing. I love that. I love its concreteness, its immediacy, its utility as an antidote to overwhelm. Whatever happens, no matter how dispirited or disoriented I may be, I can do the next right thing, even if it's just dragging myself out of bed in the morning. Or, for that matter, deciding to stay in bed and get some rest. Or planting a garden. Or leading a movement. Massachusetts Interfaith Power and Light has spent most of the last 2 decades providing conservation expertise and renewable energy services to houses of worship throughout the Commonwealth. We are grateful for the support of generous individuals and member congregations, which makes our work possible. But greening our houses of worship, however vitally important, does not adequately confront the climate crisis, nor does it address the systemic injustice that undergirds it. While continuing our conservation work, Mass IPL is launching a faith action network for climate and environmental justice. Our North Star goal is to convene a faith action team covering every one of the 160 legislative districts in the Commonwealth to hold our legislators accountable for their votes and follow through on Beacon Hill. If you'd like to learn more, please go to massipl.org/fan. That's massipl.org/F as in Fred, A, N as in Nancy, fan. If you'd like to receive the Mass IPL newsletter, just enter your email address at massipl.org/join-us. And for those here in the sanctuary, I have clipboards. I often think if Moses had been a Unitarian Universalist, he would have come down the mountain with clipboards. Whatever we do, we can't do it all. We have to choose how to spend our time, where to concentrate our attention, where to invest our energy. But since everything is connected, every next right thing we do advances the whole. I am primarily, though not exclusively, a climate justice activist. If you work primarily for immigrant justice or voting justice or racial justice or LGBTQ justice or indigenous justice or reproductive justice, you do that work for me as well, as I do my climate justice work for you, lifting up the interconnections among all these issues in a diverse and complex and powerful ecosystem of justice making. Whatever the future holds for us, you and I, each and every one of us, will always have the power of choice. The power that Viktor Frankl, even amidst the horrors of Auschwitz, called the last of the human freedoms, which can never be taken from us. The power to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So instead of bemoaning our fate, to be born into times like these, we could embrace the opportunity to face challenges unprecedented in human history with courage, creativity, determination, and devotion. We are exactly the right people for the tasks placed before us. We were made for these times, says Clarissa Pinkola Estes. For years, we've been training, learning, practicing, for just waiting to meet on this exact plane of engagement. We've been in training for a time such as this, since the day we assented to come to earth. There is only one question, wrote the late poet Mary Oliver. Now, her one question is not, will the polar ice caps melt? It's not, will nations prevail or perish? It's not, how will we survive? For Oliver, the only question is how to love this world. How to love this world. In a prayer circle at La Salle Lake in Minnesota the morning of the Line 3 protest, I listened to Ojibwe elder Mary Lyons, who survived a painful childhood, racism, and alcoholism to become a revered leader of her people and a champion for environmental justice. When I needed to hear a mother's voice, Mary Lyons says, hazel white hair, my beloved aunt, told me this: we are blessed to have this journey. We are blessed to take each step on these paths. We were gifted with strength like no other. We have to pave a path for the nations yet to come. Life is good today. Life is good today. Amen. And blessed be. The tide is rising, and so are we. This song was written by Rabbi Shoshona Meira Friedman and her husband Yotam Schechter. It's very easy to pick up, and then it's a zipper song. One line and one line only changes each verse, and I'll call that out to you, so you'll be good to go. The tide is rising. Please rise in body or in spirit. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. That's it, the tide is rising, and so are we. Give it a try. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, the task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. The land is holy, the land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. The sun is shining. The sun is shining. Sun is shining. Sun is shining. So are we. The sun is shining. So are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. The storm is raging. The storm is raging. And so are we. The storm is raging. And so are we. The storm is raging. And so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. The world is ready. The world is ready. And so are we. The world is ready. And so are we. The world is ready. And so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called. Last time the tide is rising. Tide is rising. Tide is rising. So are we. The tide is rising. So are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. Thanks for singing. When we can open our hearts and work with what we're given, loving what's before us, life stays possible. Then through effort and grace, we do what we can with what we have. And when exhausted by all that's in the way, we're faced with the chance to accept and love what's left, which is everything. This is how we discover that heaven is on earth. Amen, and blessed be.
Thank you so much, Fred, for inspiring us to remember that here if we invite it. I invite all of you to just sit back and let some of Fred's words and thoughts and feelings just sit deeply in your hearts and spirits. I'll play a brief postlude, and that will conclude our service. Thank you. Go in peace. And be sure to check out, there's a little bit of refreshments outside, a chance just to connect with each other. Thank you again for being here. And thank you all of you on Zoom for being here. Yes, and don't forget to sign one of Fred's clipboards if you'd like to be part of helping to support that effort.
Hi, Carlin.
Hello, Emma.
It's really
Thank
good to see you.
Likewise, likewise. Thank you for your sharing this morning. It meant a lot for Tom and I to hear that.
Thank you so much for telling me that.
Our hearts
It's hard
are
when
with
you're on Zoom to know, who's listening. But I could see when they panned the crowd who was there and who was on Zoom. So I know there are enough people who know me and love me that I could see them.
Our hearts are with you. Our hearts are with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Carlin. That means everything, everything. As do Fred's words at the beginning about how it could happen. I have to let go all expectation, as I've done 80,000 gabillion times, that there will be healing in my relationship with my father directly between us. I think the likelihood is slim to none, but way closer to none. And yet it could fucking happen. It could happen. Anything could happen. Awakening could happen, Love can happen,
Right, right. Where there's hope, there is life.
And even where there isn't, things could happen. Even for those who are hopeless, they can still suddenly experience something that shifts, shift happens. Right?
Yeah.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, piggyback on what Carlin said. It really was your sharing is very powerful. And I imagine took a bit of courage to hear that, especially in this context. So thank you. We were with you.
It took more than a bit. I really had to, somehow after Suzanne shared, and I love Suzanne, I felt, and she was in tears, I felt more safe. And because Fred is here and Fred sings he wrote about this topic directly and performed about it. He has songs about this. So his presence also helped with that. So yes, it always takes courage, but every part of healing does, right? It takes courage. To me, even more than it takes some. I loved his definition of hope because it's not the same as optimism, and I've never been a good optimist. Thank you, Gary. Thank you. It did. I feel honored to hear that. Thank you. And I feel whipped.
And Catherine, I want to shout out to Catherine. KD, are you there? Are you still with fever? KD, she wrote this morning that she'd had a fever recently.
Yeah. I'm not in the greatest place, but it was great to attend by Zoom. Thank you.
Hi, KD.
Hi. Yeah, a fever of 101.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
You're getting better?
Yeah, it's slow. Yeah, it was every bone and muscle in my body was aching. It was like a full-fledged flu.
Gosh, I hope it's not COVID, and I hope it passes.
No, it will pass. I think it's moving fairly quickly. I took 2 COVID tests before I had major symptoms, and it was not indicating COVID, but I'm going to take another one and see while I've still got activity going on to see if it's COVID. See if from that home test anyway.
It's worth finding out.
I think there's something. Yeah, I think there's something else going around because we've had a number of friends who didn't end up having COVID, but were very sick, sicker than the mild COVID that most people get. And it was something like what you're describing, Katie. That's
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
unpleasant,
I know it was going through Life Path staff.
but not COVID.
Yep, yep.
Sure.
The flu has been making its way around, and we've tended to forget
Mhm.
over the past couple of years that, partly because for many of us, certainly for us, we're really not seeing people in close contact. We're not getting exposed to things, but people still get sick. There are things out there besides COVID, and always have been, and always will be.
That's right. I forget all about the flu. It could just be that flu that comes every year that we're all kind of.
A number of my friends have children in the schools, in the grade schools. And so they're getting everything. They've seen, flu, they've seen bronchitis, they've seen strep, all those things that I have also gratefully not been exposed to, all things that I've had multiple times. And flu is a really nasty one, that also can kill. So it's like, it doesn't mean that if it's not COVID that you're fine, or that if it is COVID, you're going to be fine. There's long COVID. We just don't know. We just don't know anything. That's the point. And that's the point of the momentness of sharing love and connection, right?
Yeah.
I think that was the message. What do you want to be doing if it is all going to hell in a handbasket, and we can't stop it? What do you want to be doing during that? Hiding, stockpiling food and hiding guns under your house, or sharing it and being part of whatever movement and spreading love however we can, even on Zoom, right?
One of my favorite bumper stickers, I saw it years ago, and I still remember. It's like, where are we going, and what am I doing in this handbasket?
Yeah, I know. I love that one too. I love that one. And what am I doing is the question, because okay, yeah, I think it's true. I think probably as a species, the Earth will recover when there aren't humans. That's what I think is probably true. But what does that mean? Do I want to be holding hands in a circle and loving, or do I want to be, just like you said, just like a doom machine, that just goes down in my doom because
Doomster? Was it Doomster? Is that what he was calling it?
no, he said something more. It was not
Doommeister?
something. It was a good word, whatever. I would love to have a transcript of his sermon. It was really powerful.
He might, I know the recording will be available.
Oh, it will?
Well, the recording, because it's on YouTube, so that if you go to the All Souls website, I haven't actually.